Anatomy and diseases of sclera. The sclera forms the posterior opaque 5/6 part of the external fibrous tunic of the eyeball. So, sclera is basically a fibrous tunic of the eyeball. Its whole outer surface is covered by Tenon's capsule and also by the bulbar conjunctiva in the anterior part. Its inner surface lies in contact with the choroid with a potential suprachoroidal space in between. So, there is a layer of sclera. Just beneath the sclera there is choroid, and between sclera and choroid there is a potential space which is called suprachoroidal space. Sclera is thickest posteriorly and gradually becomes thin when traced anteriorly. So this is important because surgically we should know what is the thickness of the sclera, because when we are making limbal incision or when we are making incision on the sclera, we should have an idea how much is the thickness of the sclera, so that we should not make through and through perforation of the sclera. This picture shows you here a cross section of the eyeball wherein it is shown cornea. Then there is a limbus, which is a transition zone between sclera and the cornea, and the sclera. Special regions of sclera. Scleral sulcus. It is an indentation or a furrow on the inner surface of the anterior-most point of the sclera near the limbus. So basically it is a circle of groove at sclerocorneal junction. Scleral spur. It is a circular flank of the anterior-most part of the sclera which lies deep to the Schlemm's canal. It appears wedge-shaped in section. So basically it is a projection from the sclera just below the level of the scleral sulcus. Now the scleral sulcus and scleral spur has importance in glaucoma. So when you read about glaucoma, you'll get to know more about the scleral sulcus and the scleral spur and its importance. Now this picture shows you here cornea, limbus and the sclera. Now if you see the inner layer of the sclera, there is a groove here which is called scleral sulcus. This is a cross section of the eyeball. So this groove will be actually in a circular fashion at the sclerocorneal junction. So and the Schlemm canal, it lies here. So this is the importance of this sulcus, and you can see a projection of sclera on this scleral sulcus. So this is called scleral spur. So this is again a cross section, but if you imagine it three-dimensionally, it is a ring-like projection all over through the 360-degree on the scleral sulcus. Lamina cribrosa. It is a sieve-like sclera from which the fibers of the optic nerve pass. Now this lamina cribrosa, it becomes very much prominent when there is a damage to optic nerve as seen in the glaucoma cases. Scleral apertures. Sclera has three sets of apertures. Posterior aperture, it is situated around the optic nerve. Middle aperture situated 4 to 7 mm posterior to the equator. And anterior aperture, which is situated 3 to 4 mm away from the limbus. Now histologically, sclera has three layers: episcleral tissue, sclera proper, and lamina fusca. Now one thing important is episclera. So episcleral tissue is a part of the sclera. Episcleral tissue. It is a thin, dense, vascularized layer of the connective tissue which covers the sclera proper. Anteriorly, it becomes continuous with the Tenon's capsule. So one thing which is important is episclera is a vascular tissue. Sclera proper. It is an avascular structure which consists of dense bundles of collagen fibers crossing each other in all directions. This arrangement makes the sclera opaque in contrast to the cornea. Mucopolysaccharides are present in the interfibrillar space of the collagen fiber. Few fibroblasts are also present in this layer. So, sclera proper is an avascular structure. Lamina fusca. It is the innermost part of the sclera which blends with the suprachoroidal and supraciliary lamina of the uveal tract. It is brownish in color owing to the presence of pigment cells. Now, as I told, just beneath the sclera there is a choroid, and between the sclera and a choroid there is a potential space which is called a suprachoroidal space. The same space which, when continued forward, is called as supraciliary lamina. The episclera receives its blood supply from the anterior ciliary arteries and the long and the short posterior ciliary arteries. The sclera is supplied by the branches from the long ciliary nerves anteriorly and short ciliary nerves behind the equator. Inflammation of the sclera. Now this is important. It can come as a short note. So we have got two types: episcleritis, which is superficial, which involves episclera. Now, as I told, sclera has three parts: episcleral tissue, sclera proper, and lamina fusca. So this is inflammation of the episcleral tissue, and it is called episcleritis. And second one is the scleritis, which is the inflammation of the sclera proper, and it is deep anatomically. Episcleritis. It is a benign recurrent inflammation of the episclera. It involves the overlying Tenon's capsule. Even though Tenon's capsule is not a part of sclera, but it is involving the Tenon's capsule because it is lying adjacent to the episcleral tissue. But it does not involve the underlying sclera. Etiology of episcleritis. Mostly it is unknown. It has got association with gout, psoriasis, or rosacea. It is a hypersensitivity reaction to endogenous tubercular or streptococcal toxins. So either it is unknown, or it has an association with some systemic disease, or it is a hypersensitivity reaction to endogenous tubercular or streptococcal toxins. Male incidence in male is more than the female, and mostly it affects the young adult. Pathology of episcleritis. It is a localized lymphocytic infiltration of the episcleral tissue. There will be edema and congestion of the overlying Tenon's capsule and conjunctiva. So there is a lymphocytic infiltration along with edema and congestion of the overlying Tenon's capsule and conjunctiva. Symptoms. There will be redness, there will be foreign body sensation and pain. But pain is not as severe as seen in cases of scleritis. There are two types of episcleritis. One is diffuse episcleritis and the other is nodular episcleritis. The whole eye may be involved to some extent in case of diffuse episcleritis, but usually it is limited to quadrants, to one or two quadrants. In nodular episcleritis, a pink or purple flat nodule surrounded by injection is seen 2 to 3 millimeter away from the limbus. The nodule is firm, tender, and the overlying conjunctiva moves freely. So this is a nodular episcleritis picture, and the first one is a picture of diffuse episcleritis. Now, as I told, you have to differentiate this from scleritis. Now, patients with scleritis, they will mostly complain of pain. Pain is severe in cases of scleritis. Clinical course. It is limited course of 10 days to 3 weeks. It tends to resolve spontaneously. So it usually remains for a period of 10 days to 3 weeks. Recurrences are common and tend to occur in bouts. So whenever there are recurrences, we have to rule out systemic diseases. A fleeting type of disease, episcleritis periodica, may occur. Differential diagnosis could be inflamed pinguicula and scleritis. Treatment of episcleritis. Topical corticosteroids, eye drops 2 to 3 hourly, cold compression applied to the closed lids, and systemic non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like flurbiprofen 300 mg stat single dose or indomethacin 25 mg 3 times a day is useful. Scleritis. Scleritis in a patient is serious. So it is inflammation of the sclera proper, whereas scleritis was inflammation of the episcleral tissue. Females tend to have scleritis more commonly than the males. It affects mostly elderly, whereas episcleritis used to affect more young adults. Symptoms: moderate to severe pain, deep and boring in character, and often wakes the patient early in the morning. Radiates to the jaw and temple, localized or diffuse redness. It can have association with photophobia and lacrimation. Etiology of scleritis. Now, as I told, scleritis is a serious condition. It has an association with systemic diseases. So those need to be ruled out by writing investigations. So it has an association with autoimmune collagen disorders like rheumatoid arthritis, which is a very common association, then Wagner's granulomatosis, polyarthritis nodosa, SLE, and ankylosing spondylitis. It can have an association with metabolic disorders like gout and thyrotoxicosis. It can have an association with certain infections like herpes zoster ophthalmicus or a staphylococcal and streptococcal infection. Granulomatous disease like tuberculosis, syphilis, sarcoidosis, leprosy, etc. Miscellaneous conditions like irradiation injury, chemical burns, VKH, Behçet's disease, and rosacea. Surgically induced scleritis is also seen, which happens due to ocular surgery or ocular trauma, and this happens within 6 months post-operatively. And it can also be idiopathic, wherein the reasons are not known. So these are the various etiologies of scleritis. So this is the pathology of the scleritis. There is infiltration of the neutrophils, lymphocytes, plasma cells, and macrophages, followed by fibrinoid necrosis and destruction of collagen, followed by granuloma formation, surrounded by multinucleated epithelioid giant cells. Classification of scleritis. So basically it is of two types, anterior scleritis and posterior scleritis. In anterior scleritis, which is more common, 98% cases are anterior scleritis. It is of two types. One is non-necrotizing scleritis, second is necrotizing scleritis. In non-necrotizing scleritis, we have got two forms, diffuse and nodular. In necrotizing scleritis, it has an association with inflammation and without inflammation. Now, without inflammation is called scleromalacia perforans. Just remember this, that necrotizing scleritis without signs of inflammation is called scleromalacia perforans, and second is posterior scleritis. Now coming to non-necrotizing anterior diffuse scleritis, it is commonest. Widespread inflammation involving a quadrant or more of the anterior sclera. The area is raised and salmon pink to purple in color. So here in the picture you can see the congestion, and it is a pink. It should be pink to purplish, basically violaceous in coloration. So non-necrotizing anterior scleritis is of two types. One is diffuse, which I just read, and the second one is the nodular type. So here I'm dealing with the nodular scleritis. So one or two hard purplish elevated scleral nodules are seen, usually situated near the limbus. The nodules are arranged in a ring round the limbus, which is called annular scleritis. Now third one, anterior necrotizing scleritis with inflammation. Acute severe form of scleritis. It is characterized by intense localized inflammation associated with areas of infarction due to vasculitis. So there will be necrosed sclera, thinned out. Sclera becomes transparent and ectatic with uveal tissue shining through it. So they can be associated staphyloma here. And there can be signs of anterior uveitis. So it is a very severe condition where necrosis of sclera happens, and because of necrosis there will be thinning of sclera, and you can see the blackish uveal tissue just beneath the thin out layer of the sclera. Anterior necrotizing scleritis without inflammation is called scleromalacia perforans, seen in elderly females with long-standing rheumatoid arthritis. Yellowish patch of melting sclera due to obliteration of the arterial supply, with overlying episclera and conjunctiva completely separates from the surrounding normal sclera. Eventually absorbs, leaving behind it a large punched out area of thin sclera through which the uveal tissue shines. There may be spontaneous perforation in such kind of scleritis. So it happens in elderly females with long-standing rheumatoid arthritis. The episclera and the conjunctiva separates from the normal sclera, and there's a thinning of the sclera. So as the sclera thins out, the uveal tissues are seen through it, and eventually in some cases it can lead to perforation. Posterior scleritis. Now Scleritis behind the equator is called posterior scleritis, frequently misdiagnosed, associated with inflammation of the adjacent structures, exudative retinal detachment. It can cause macular edema, it can cause proptosis, and there will be limitation of ocular movements with pain. Complications of scleritis. There can be secondary glaucoma, complicated cataract, sclerosing keratitis, and keratolysis. Investigations. So as I told, the scleritis is a serious condition. And it has an association with the metabolic diseases or autoimmune diseases. So we need to do a panel of investigation. So the basic investigations like TLC, DLC, and ESR. The serum level of complement like C3, immune complexes, rheumatoid factor to rule out rheumatoid arthritis, and anti-nuclear antibodies to rule out autoimmune diseases, and ELI cells for an immunological survey. Fluorescent treponemal antibody absorption test, VDRL for syphilis, then serum uric acid for gout, urine analysis is done, Montu's test is done to rule out tuberculosis, X-rays of chest is done to rule out sarcoidosis or tuberculosis, paranasal sinuses, sacroiliac joint and orbit to rule out foreign body, especially in patients with nodular scleritis. Treatment of scleritis for non-necrotizing scleritis. So in cases of non-necrotizing scleritis, we just use topical steroid eye drops and systemic indomethacin 100 mg daily for a day, and then 75 mg daily until inflammation resolves. So basically we use steroid eye drop and a systemic indomethacin. For necrotizing scleritis, we need to put the patient on topical steroids and a heavy dose of oral steroids tapered slowly. So here we are treating the patient with both topical medication as well as systemic medication of steroids. In non-responsive cases, immunosuppressive agents like methotrexate or cyclophosphamide may need to be added. Subconjunctival steroids are contraindicated because they may lead to scleral thinning and perforation. Blue sclera. Now, last year, this came as a short note uh, to the students. So, blue sclera, it is an asymptomatic condition. Marked generalized blue discoloration of sclera due to thinning is seen. Association, it has an association with osteogenesis imperfecta, Marfan syndrome, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, pseudoxanthoma elasticum, diophthalmus, high myopia, and healed scleritis. Staphylomas. Definition of staphylomas are important. So the definition is bulging of thin or weak outer tunic of the eyeball, which can be cornea or sclera, lined by uveal tissue. So bulging of the outer tunic of eyeball lined by uveal tissue is important. So outer tunic of eyeball, it can either be cornea or sclera, and there should be a lining of uveal tissue. Classification, it depends on the location where the staphylomas are found. So based on that, we have anterior staphyloma, intercalary staphyloma, ciliary staphyloma, equatorial staphyloma, and posterior staphyloma. So there are 5 types, and staphylomas are important because you get notes on it. Anterior staphyloma. So this is limited to the cornea. Association with ectasia of cornea lined by iris tissue. So iris is a part of uveal tissue. It happens due to perforating corneal ulcer or injury. Intercalary staphyloma. Now this occurs at the region of the limbus. So there is a localized bulge in the limbal area lined by the root of the iris. So here there is a lining of the root of the iris. Due to ectasia of the weak scar tissue following perforating injury or healing peripheral corneal ulcer. Complications. It can lead to secondary angle closure glaucoma or defective vision due to marked astigmatism. Treatment is localized sphirectomy under high dose of steroids. Ciliary staphyloma. Ectasia of sclera lined by ciliary body. So in anterior staphyloma it was lined by iris. In the intercalary staphyloma it was lined by the root of the iris, and in the ciliary staphyloma it is lined by the ciliary body. So it is ectasia of the sclera lined by ciliary body. It occurs 2 to 3 mm away from the limbus. Due to perforating injury or scleritis or absolute glaucoma. Equatorial staphyloma. It is ectasia of sclera lined by choroid in equatorial region due to posterior scleritis or due to scleral degeneration as seen in cases of pathological myopia. Now this is the last slide, posterior staphyloma. So this is ectasia of the sclera lined by choroid behind equator. Causes are scleral degeneration seen in cases of pathological myopia, scleritis or perforating injury. So the reasons are very few. So one was for any staphyloma, it is usually a ulcer or a perforating injury or scleritis or a pathological myopia. So just keep in mind these four things: corneal ulcer, trauma, perforating injury, scleritis, and myopia. Thank you.